Welcome back to Beyond the Script. In this episode, we are going to dive into why intuition is so important in business, why I consider it your number one business partner, if you will, and how it helps things just flow a lot smoother in business when it comes to making investments, making decisions, making mentoring decisions, being a good mentor, being a good business owner, right? So let's go ahead and dive into it. Full transparency, I don't have any notes today. Most of the time when I record these episodes, I have a few notes, but today I was like, I'm just going to let it go off the top of my head because this is something that I already love to talk about. So let's just get into it. So, when it comes to intuition being your best business partner, the biggest thing that we have to remember with intuition in business is sometimes intuition can be mistaken for ego. What do I mean by that? So, when people don't know how to differentiate what is intuition and what is ego, they will sometimes mistake ego thoughts for intuitive thoughts because the ego is so powerful in the sense that it can stir up feelings in the body. It can make you feel some type of way. It can make you feel things in your gut, in your chest, right? And so when we are figuring out what's the intuitive voice, what's the ego voice, right? This is where people get confused, and you sometimes may make the wrong decisions thinking that it was an intuitive decision, but it was actually an ego decision. So when we think about our intuitive decisions, oftentimes intuitive decisions can feel uncomfortable. They can even feel scary at times. And so we have this false belief, this false perception that if it feels scary, it's not intuition, that it's ego. But that's actually not true, because the reason that the intuition and the intuitive guidance can sometimes feel scary is because it's new. It's uncomfortable because it's taking you to a different level. It's taking you to more of where you desire to be, right? Whereas the ego's job is to keep you safe. The ego's job is to keep you comfortable and in a state of, where you feel comfortable, you feel good, etc. And so this is where the misconception comes in, is that, oh, it feels uncomfortable, so it must not be my intuition, it must be my ego, right? And so how do we get past that? First things first is, one of the things that I like to say is usually like the first nudge that you feel, that is your intuition. If you've ever watched one of those like TikTok or Reel videos, you'll see like, which one, they'll say like, I'm holding, two crystals in my hand, for example, and they have it covered, or they have it in black and white, and they'll say like, which one is the green one? Or I'm thinking of a number, which one is the number, right? And it's supposed to like kind of do these intuitive tests. And so what happens is we get the first nudge, the very first nudge that comes up, and that's the intuition. But then the ego comes up right after, and the ego was like, no, 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 that's probably wrong. No, 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 that's not right. And so then we second guess ourselves. And once that second guessing comes in, we're no longer in tune with the intuition. We're now on the ego frequency. We're now listening to the ego thoughts, right? But because the ego thoughts feel so real, because, well, they are real, but because they feel so much safer, if you will, we follow that. And we follow that and believe that that is the guidance that we were supposed to get. Now, taking it back to the video I just talked about, how many times have you second guessed yourself? Or scratch that, we don't even need the video. How many times have you second guessed yourself and then you're like, wait a second, my first instinct was right. I knew that answer. How many times have we said that? I've said that, like, oh, I knew the answer, but I didn't say anything. Or I knew the answer and I changed my mind, right? That's because we didn't follow through on our intuition. So tying it back into business, intuition in business, the initial tug, the initial pull, the initial thought, the initial, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, that is the intuitive guidance. That is the guidance from your higher self to put you on the right path. What happens is the ego comes in and we second guess it. We start telling ourselves this idea can't make money. Nobody else is doing it this way. Well, I follow so and so and I respect them and they said it needs to be done this way, right? So we start second guessing what it is we're supposed to do. We start second guessing the guidance that we received, and we then look to the world, to the people around us, for what it is we're meant to be doing. And because the ego likes to show us proof, the ego is going to find proof either A, in the times that you have attempted something and failed, or B, in other people's successes. But other people's successes does not equate to your success. No two journeys are identical. And this is not to say that you shouldn't go and receive guidance from mentors or anything like that. But at the beginning of this episode, I said when you trust your intuition, then you'll understand the investments that you're meant to make. You will invest in the mentors that can guide you based on what it is that you are meant to be doing. And even within that guidance, when you trust your intuition, you can tell your mentor, your coach, hey, I don't think that's for me. Let's brainstorm something else. Versus following blindly and doing everything that you were told to do, and then you end up resentful. You end up resentful because you may feel like the investment was a waste of time. You end up resentful because you stepped out of your power, you outsourced your power to somebody else, and then you start to think like, oh, it's not working for me. It's not working for you because you're operating under ego beliefs and not intuitive beliefs. It's not working because you are listening to what everyone is telling you to do instead of checking in with yourself. And I know this because I have been this person. I know this because these are things that I have done years ago. It wasn't until this year, it's September 2025, as I'm recording this episode. It was not until this year, within this last year, that I actually understood why my business was so stressful the years prior, and why I didn't like it, and why I would start and stop and all of the things. And it was because I had no intuitive trust. So this year, when I learned how to trust my intuition, yes, I still made uncomfortable investments, but they were led intuitively. Of course, they felt uncomfortable. My ego's like, you can't do this. You can't spend this. And mind you, like in the grand scheme of things, it's not like it was an outrageous amount of money. I mean, how much something costs, whether it's expensive or not expensive, is subjective to the buyer. So my point is, I had to learn what my intuition was, and then I had to learn to trust it. And so that's what you have to do. You have to learn what your intuitive voice is, and you have to learn how to trust it. And the biggest thing that I can say to you is it's not always going to be comfortable. Just because it's uncomfortable doesn't mean it's intuitive guidance. Just because you have an idea and nobody else is doing it doesn't mean that it's wrong. Most of the time, this is something that you're tasked with. This is something that you have to go and pave the way through. And the reason that you have, little to nobody to be able to 100% guide you on it is because you are supposed to trailblaze the journey. You are supposed to trailblaze the path. But when we keep letting our ego dictate what it is to do in business, that's when we stay stuck in a cycle. We stay stuck in a loop of starting something, resenting it, stopping it, and then wanting to start over. But then when we want, if you have been in a pattern of starting and stopping, you will know each time you start over, I want you to audit. I want you to audit your business lifestyle. Each time that you have started over from the original place that you tried to start in the beginning. What does that mean? So I'll give you an example. For me, right? When I started business, I wanted to start by selling digital products. That was like my number one thing. I wanted to just sell digital products. And this was like 6 years ago. And then throughout that, I was not in tune with my own intuition. I was not in tune with what I wanted to do. I wanted to do digital products for writers, right? People wanting to write, wanting to do self-discovery, wanting to uncover who they are, basically. So anyways, as time went on, I would get distracted and I would go do a sales ebook, and then I started coaching and all the things. And, then I went into I want to do high ticket coaching. I actually never really wanted to sell high ticket coaching at the time, right? I thought I did, but that was more like ego forced or ego beliefs. because I didn't even really know what I was coaching on. So anyway, so then I went to sell high ticket coaching. And then after that, like I took a break for business and I was like, I don't want to do this business. And so I took a break and I went back to corporate. And then from going back to corporate, again, it comes up, I want to sell digital products. So then I relaunch again selling digital products because that's what I wanted to do. And so the theme repeated itself twice before I finally was able to check in and be like, every single time you restart with the exact same thing. And then you get distracted by what everybody else is saying. When the reality is you need to just trust your own path and stay the course with what it is you're meant to do. Once I learned how to stay the course and trust on my own path and do the things that I was meant to do, business became fun. Business started to become easier. Business started to not feel like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm supposed to say today, or I don't know what to post, or I don't know how to show up, or blah, 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 and all the other little excuses we give ourselves. It started to actually have a sense of purpose, and it started to have a direction. And then from that direction, then you're able to make investments based on that, right? So coming back, I was like, actually, I want both, right? I do want the digital products. I want that to be the bread and butter of my business, but I also do want to offer coaching, and I do want to offer like, high ticket coaching and things like that. So then I was able to find mentors who had both, who had the ecosystem like what I had wanted, so that they could teach me some of the strategies that they did that also aligned with how I wanted my business to look, right? Because what happens when you don't trust your intuition is when you hire these mentors, they have strategies that you don't even want to follow. And one of the hills that I will die on is that all strategies in business work. You just have to pick one and go all in with it. But you can't go all in with it if you don't even know how you want your business to look. You can't commit to anything if you don't even trust yourself to make these commitments. If you don't trust yourself to follow through on the actions, then you're never going to commit to something. And this is why you hop and hop and hop and hop and hop all around. So once you dial in to your own intuition, and I'm about to teach you how in a second. Once you dial into your own intuition and you learn, okay, this is intuitive guidance, no wait, this is my ego trying to play some tricks. And I must say, the ego can be very, very tricky. You will loop back into beliefs without even realizing it, because the ego operates on the subconscious level, and the subconscious mind is so powerful. It's taking in information all the time. It remembers the things that we don't consciously remember, right? That saying, the body keeps score. Excuse me. It's 100% true. And so, but once you learn the difference, then you'll operate differently. Your business will begin to flourish. Your business will begin to have a sense of direction. It will then, begin to turn profits and things like that. But you first have to dial in to what your mission is, to what your intuition is telling you, and then learn how to embody the identity of that woman. And so you're like, Nikki, I hear you, but how do I even know like what the difference between intuition and ego is? So the first thing that I'm going to say is, the more that you meditate, you will then learn how to hear your intuitive voice, right? A lot of us don't even hear it. A lot of us, when we're living life on autopilot, we don't even hear what the guidance is because we have tuned it out so many times. And so the more that as you start to meditate, you'll at least start to learn what that voice sounds like, right? That's the first thing. The second piece in terms of learning what your intuitive voice is trust your initial reactions. Trust your gut instinct, right? Your intuition, some people will ask me like, well, what's the difference between intuition and anxiety? Because I have anxiety about things. Listen, I have anxiety about things too. And I'll tell you this, when I know it's intuitive guidance, there's no question, because it doesn't ask a what if question. When I know it's my intuition, it's very much going to be like a command. Go get a drink of water. Take this road instead. Leave your house in 10 minutes. Wait 10 more minutes, right? It's a command. Whereas anxiety is a what if. Anxiety comes in, and the ego will do this too. If we're talking about like business investments, the ego can do this too, but it comes up as a what if. Oh, what if you know, let me think. What if I make this investment and I don't make my money back, right? What if I get in a car accident on the way to work? What if this? What if that, right? Those are more anxious thoughts, the what if thoughts. Okay. But the commands, that's your intuition. No, you need to do this, right? So when it comes to the second thing I said, when it comes to like learning what your intuitive voice is the initial nudge that you get, follow through. You're also building self-trust when you follow through on what that intuitive nudge was. Okay. And the last thing I'll say is writing, but not just any form of writing. I want you to do, if you've listened to other episodes, and you know that I talk about what I call intuitive writing. It's also known as like a stream of conscious writing. And as you write, what you do is you can ask yourself a question on the top of the page, or you just start writing without a question. And you write for at least 10 minutes without structuring it, without stopping, without thinking too much about it. It's like a free flow style of writing. And as you do this, you will then, some of you will do this and you will get guidance right there on the paper. Some of you will do this and you'll be like, dang, there's a whole message here for me. Some of you will do this and you will understand the thoughts that are floating beneath the surface. Actually, all of you will understand the thoughts that are floating beneath the surface. And as you understand the thoughts that are floating beneath the surface and that are in the subconscious mind, then you will understand more about why or what your ego is trying to keep you safe from, why you have certain beliefs, right? And that's going to help you understand, like, okay, these are the thoughts and limiting beliefs that are underneath the surface. So anything that I have, anything that I think consciously that tries to reinforce that belief, that's an ego trick, right? And I'm talking about the beliefs that you don't want to keep anymore. That then becomes an ego trick. Whereas the the intuition is going to be, like I said, the guidance, right? And you'll see it on the paper. You'll see some, like I said, some of you will get a message. The message, that is your intuition. All of you will see the beliefs going on beneath the surface. That is what the ego is trying to protect. And so those are my top 3 ways to really learn what your intuitive voice is, what it sounds like, what it's commanding of you, also known as your higher self, so that you can make proper decisions, so that you can somewhat master decision making, both in business, but then also this will bleed into your life. You'll be able to make clearer decisions in life. You'll be able to trust yourself more. So that is what I have for you today when it comes to intuition in business and utilizing intuition in business. We did dive into a little bit of intuition versus ego. So if you like this episode, please feel free to share it with any other entrepreneur who you feel would benefit. And then if you listen to the episode and you enjoyed it, you can tag me on Instagram at _the Nikki Lynn, and I will talk to you all in the next one.